let's go ahead and start, first of all, with some basic structure, which is why an out of body is different from astral traveling and how it is similar to near death, just to set the template of what you do up for everybody.
First and foremost, the out of body state is an astral projection. The astral projection, it needs to be very, very clearly understood what we're doing here. The out of body state is no different from a near death. So when the soul leaves the body, the soul is leaving the body. The body's dipping down to a certain state where it's a shutdown process. Now, when somebody has a near death experience, just so people that are listening could see the comical wording that's being used. If someone has a near death experience and they cross over to the other side, you don't say that they've astral projected to the other side. Okay. Same thing applies with the out of body state. When you fully leave and exit the body, you are doing just that. Just so happens to be as well, it's not just my word for it. There's David, testimonial of doing the out of body state. And he has had a near death experience because he has a heart issue. And he has done the out of body state, and it's the same thing. So what astral projection is this is a made up word for, basically made up terminology for dimensional space access. And dimensional space access is literally just that. It's your thought forms create a dimensional space in your field. So when you come out, you will experience your thought forms, etc. That's what people are calling the astral. Okay. But it's not the out of body state. And when you lump it into that, it tends to be put in this category of not the actual accuracy of what we're actually doing here.
Yes, that's good. Thank you. Okay. People watching this, most of them have heard quite a bit about out of body, near death, and astral traveling. That's why I wanted you to really kind of clear that up, because it gets kind of sloppy and fuzzy between the three in some people's vernacular. So you got to a point where you conquered the fear. First, you would just look around the room. Then you were able to start stepping further and further. And with the assistance of a guide who's been very, very close to you. Tell us a little bit about the guide that initially took you out into beyond this construct, so you could see what kind of the universe, the construct, the realms and dimensions are made of. What was that first experience like, and how'd you get there?
This was back at 16. Now, when I was having these experiences, I was not totally aware of that which I was seeing, similar to or akin to someone that had one near-death experience, and they access a whole bunch of stuff, and they try to come back, and I can only tell you the feeling. Mm-hmm. But way back then, there was a being, her name was Celeste, that was showing me things at 16 years old. She was showing me the creation of what you see there, the image, the construct. She was showing me how time works, dimensional spaces, the basically everything from the start. Now, I didn't know how to articulate this at all, because it was one experience, but it wasn't until I learned how to get absolute control over this state at will through practice, where I was revisiting these places over and over and over again, being shown the realms, the 12 realms within this construct, also being taken out of the construct as well, seeing my deceased uncle Bob, and things taking place in real time here as well. Once you come out, you are accessing here at first. You're seeing what's taking place here. You could see if someone is doing something here, you could see it taking place in real time. If someone writes something on the whiteboard, you could see that. But you could also access further out. And this is, you could say, accessing the true universe that has always been here.
And one thing you that I find fascinating that we're going to go into is you're actually able to see the thought forms, both individually and collectively, that are forming. And this is through our own belief, imagination, desire, etc., whatever it is that propels us to have a clear thought and then reinforce it over and over again, so it starts becoming something more solid or more concretized into a reality. You're able to actually see that. You can encounter it. You've walked through people's thought forms. This is trippy. I love what you've done, and that you're able to articulate this to us.
Once you're out, yes, you are tapping into, you could say, it is thought forms of yourself, other individuals as well. This is where you step into integrity, understand unconditional love, and potential time events as well. So what's the difference between a material object here and a thought form? Now you would think they're different, but they're really not, because one is in a state that your physical body could touch because your physical body's at a certain frequency. Same with the material objects here in a certain frequency, so therefore you get to interact with it. Now thought forms are just as physical and just as real as what you're experiencing now, because once you come out of the body, you're accessing, it's just a change of the dial of frequency. And those thoughts, those dimensional spaces are physical things. You could step into it, experience it, touch it, taste it, feel it. It's all there. And when you think of something, it's going out into what you would call is the ether, the field of things. And this is where it goes into the collective field of information that people could tap into. They get intuitive downloads because they're tapping into the source of all things that are out there. This is why everything in your life is recorded. Everything is known. Everybody is naked on the other side, not necessarily as a bad thing, but it's all there. These things don't just disappear. So
I hope you're enjoying this video, because if you are, there are dozens more like it on my site, all supported by people like you. So if you'd like to keep this work rolling in and join our community, just click on the Patreon button at reginameredith.com. That also gives you access to insider commentary, my live book club, and other live events with special guests. So join in. Thanks.
That's very important for us to know. And it makes a lot of people flesh with embarrassment, guilt, shame, etc. But the reality is we're all in this. We're all humans. We all have thoughts that are high, thoughts that are low, thoughts that are lustful and greedy and kind and benevolent. And I think first to just drop the judgment around all of that experience of being human. You've come back very heavily on the side of non-judgment. So maybe just flesh that out a bit for us so we don't have to feel embarrassed.
You could judge another soul on the other side. For instance, you can, because your consciousness dictates the universe. You have ultimate expression of freedom with no limitation once you're out of the body. So, but the core frequency, the base block that creates all things, is in a state of always unconditional love. This is the thing that has been perverse in the New Age movement, to think that unconditional love is a passive nature, but it's the very force that creates everything. When you are in that state in your soul, you are in the frequency of one creation. You are in the frequency that rebuilds everything. Even if you're in a state physically here, because your soul's still connected, your soul's in the body, that frequency of love, the true frequency, not distortion, will start to decode the body and the cells within the body. And you could say heal the body because it's in a certain state. It's just frequency stuff. This is as simple as experiments that have been done with rice. You stick rice in a jar, another rice in a jar. You say, I love you to the rice on the right-hand side with water in the jar. It doesn't decay. But you say, I hate you and stuff to the other side, it starts to decay and basically get mold. And this has been proven. So the frequency, once you're out, and I want to give a lot of context to this so it's understood. Once you step out of integrity and unconditional love, you step out of the core essence of who you are. And this is what causes the rapid decline. And you could say the physical attributes of the body, the soul getting what they call devolved because you're falling out of love, which is then falling out of love into a demon. All right. What people consider demons are basically a soul that has fallen so far out of love. So right now, when people think of evil things, people could be face to face with a relative, their family member, and they could be called a demon just because they fell out of love, not necessarily that they can't return back to it. So once you are in that state, there is no judgment, because in that state, everything's in a place of unconditional love, and you cannot have unconditional love with a judgment. And that is the core frequency of things which manifests and creates all things.
So that brings us to the big question. People are going through really stressful times right now. The planet's going through stressful times, and arguably probably the solar system is going through stressful times. And so it does create a certain amount of division and creates a lot of judgment. And this is something that I've talked about before. Once we start separating ourselves in judgment, and say virtually most everybody is doing this in one way or another, when you step out of this realm, what does that look like with a collective of chaos and judgment going on for the earth?
Well, everything is chaotic here because just what you just said, but also a lot of people think, and if you go back what I said about thoughts, a lot of people think that what they think of just vanish. It just disappears. It doesn't. It's still there. This is where you go into deep things that are hidden, are always presented to you in the foreground. Even with near-death experienced people, when they die, all of their back things that they put in the back of their head are all presented in the forefront because it all has to be dealt with and seen. There's no walking away from yourself ever. Even when you cross over, you always face yourself. And this is part of the whole judgment thing. It's, you're judging yourself, etc. Once you see what's taking place here in realm one, the earthly realm, it is very, you could say, chaotic as such, because you're seeing all of it physically and also thought forms in other people's field as well. This is what they use as well to get people stuck in a loop, in a cycle, constantly of focusing on the wrong things, typically fear-based narratives, fear-based things, because that collective thought starts to project a certain timeline. And with more energy projected into that timeline, it's basically gets more solidified.
You're able to see somewhat, time is obviously a very relative thing, but you're able to see timelines play out because you're seeing the saturation of thought forms that take on a certain amount of direction and mass. And it helps you to see what's shaping up with some accuracy in the future. And you've had this happen in very small ways when you've been out of your body watching something and boom, you think something and wow, it's happening the next moment.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you might also want to consider joining Patreon, which allows me to keep all of this content free and available to everyone. And if you're looking for like-minded souls, you might also enjoy my online community called Our Neighborhood. Links to join are in the description.